The language of sales. So we've been talking about the importance of asking questions and the danger of answering questions. Isn't it almost like learning a new language? Regular readers of my blogs and books and subscribers to my newsletters will know that I'm extremely insistent upon any salesperson not answering questions directly. Rather, I'd want them to acknowledge the question asked and then ask a clarification question instead, or a question related to the question, to keep control of the conversation. Much of my sales training involves delegates getting a real understanding of what actually happens in the sales process and how their behaviour directly affects the outcome. Many delegates take the ideas from my sessions away into their personal lives with some very interesting, positive results. So the new language that I was referring to is actually the language of sales. To elucidate, I think a little background information might be in order first. Let's look at the language we're speaking at the moment. I'm not referring to English, rather the secret hidden language that we're all conditioned to speak by the system, or as I might say, the matrix. Perhaps the phrase shouldn't be language at all. Maybe I should use the phrase operating system. In computer terms, and let's be honest, our brains are organic computers, your machine uses a type of computer language and it runs on an operating system, or OS for short. So whether we use the term language or operating system, I'm really talking about the same thing. I quite like the term OS and we'll use that for this session. So the OS that most salespeople, and actually most people run on, is one that I've called AS. You see, AS is the operating system that our parents installed in us when we were children. AS was modified and revised by our teachers whilst at school, with quite a lot of input from our peer group. Later on, we modified it ourselves when we left school and installed further self-upgrades and revisions as we continued throughout our life. Sometimes these upgrades were provided by employers and other authority figures. AS stands for Answering Service. People who have AS installed will do their utmost to answer any question that anyone asks them. They will try very hard to answer and will find it very hard to ask any questions themselves. The ability to ask questions is inhibited by AS. That's the purpose of the system, or the OS, should I say. Your parents and your teachers told you not to ask too many questions. You were rewarded by your parents and by teachers for knowing the answers. In fact, the academic system is set up to reward people who can demonstrate their knowledge by having the ability to answer large numbers of questions. In fact, we are told daily when at school that employment prospects are enhanced by having a university degree, which is often gained by having the ability to answer really complex questions, and that job interview success will usually depend on being able to answer the questions that the interview throws at you. And if you're ever in a court of law, it's a crime not to answer the questions. With all that programming going on, is it any wonder that most people have the AS operating system installed? That's all well and good if you want to be an ordinary citizen who is working in administration, academia, or any role that means you don't have to ask many questions. However, should you want to be successful in sales, you will know that you have to ask questions, not answer them. So if you're going to be a great salesperson, we need to install a different OS. The 5 A's is that OS. Now you can call it a more simplified version of AQA, which could stand for Asking Questions and Acknowledging Operating System, but I quite like having the 5 A's as my OS. You see, with this new 5A operating system, you have a positive attitude. You ask questions. Actively listen. You acknowledge what's been said. You can ask questions to your heart's desire with no inhibitions. You control conversations and the narrative with everyone you talk to. You're in charge of your life and your destiny. You can help customers buy from you really quickly. You build trust with clients fast. In fact, you build trust with everybody quickly. You become an adept closer. You can control every conversation we have, customers, suppliers, friends, family, even with strangers. And it's particularly effective to use the AQA system or the 5A system on people who have the AS system installed. And that's most of the people on the planet. With 5A, you can be in charge of every conversation. If you meet another person who's got 5A, you find a kindred spirit and the wheel of relationship starts fizzing almost immediately. Unfortunately, it's likely that you'll have the AS system installed currently, and uninstalling the AS operating system and replacing it with 5A operating system can't be done through watching one video. And there'll be more about this as we go through the process. Practice is everything, and practicing asking questions and understanding the reason why you're inhibited of asking questions is part of this process. Now, without plugging my book Sell Your Attitude too much, a lot of the element and the function of Sell Your Attitude is to help you uninstall AS and install 5A. And it's well worth reading, and it can be bought on Amazon as a Kindle or be bought directly from our website. In fact, a lot of the motivational courses that we run actually are focused and founded on Sell Your Attitude. So in summary, the language of sales is asking questions and acknowledging what's been said. And the quickest way to install or start uninstalling the answering service and install 5As is to use acknowledgements. And the simplest acknowledgement is OK. Because OK gives you a third of a second, half a second, OK. Maybe a whole second of extra thinking time. So in future, if you want to start installing the language of sales, installing 5A, then what you need to do is just say OK when someone asks you a question. Get used to saying OK. Try it now. OK. So when somebody asks you a question, whatever it is, how are you feeling today? You can go, OK, that's a good question. Let me think about how I'm feeling. I'm feeling fine. There's a sample. It's the beginning of the install process. Get used to saying OK. As you develop and as you go through this sales training program again and again, and I advise going through 3 or 4 times, you will be getting this constant installation of the new process. And eventually, when you fully install with 5A, you won't be able to answer a question without acknowledging. And that is true control and true power in any conversation.